The crystal chandelier sparkled above as Emily's trembling hand froze mid-air, the cleaning cloth suspended in shock. Nathan Reynolds stood in the doorway, his penetrating blue eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her blood run cold. "That was Dutch, wasn't it?" he asked, his voice eerily calm. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd been caught speaking a language no cleaning lady should know, revealing the education she'd carefully hidden beneath her grey uniform. I should go," she stammered, but his next words stopped her in her tracks. "5 languages, Columbia degree, and you're wiping coffee rings off my table," he said, stepping closer. "Tell me, Emily Thompson, what other secrets are you hiding behind that mop?" The pre-dawn darkness shrouded Emily Thompson as she swiped her employee badge at the service entrance of Reynolds Tower. 4:45 a.m., the same time, every day, for 2 years. The security guard, Ron, 60-something with kind eyes and arthritic hands, barely looked up from his crossword puzzle. "Morning, sunshine," he mumbled, sliding a styrofoam cup of black coffee across the counter. "Their daily ritual. You're a lifesaver, Ron." Emily's smile didn't quite reach her tired eyes as she took the cup. The warmth against her palms was the closest thing to comfort she'd felt in days. The service elevator groaned like it resented being awake too. Emily leaned against the metal wall, her reflection fractured in the scratched stainless steel. 27 years old, Columbia degree, 5 languages, and here she was, wearing a grey uniform with Reynolds Tower maintenance embroidered above. Her heart. "This isn't forever," she whispered to herself, her daily affirmation worn smooth like a river stone from repetition. The 53rd floor was her responsibility today. Executive level, where the air smelled different, expensive cologne, leather furniture and the distinct scent of power. Emily pushed her cart down the hushed corridor, its squeaky wheel a jarring intrusion in the cathedral-like silence of wealth. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, her brother Michael's morning text. She'd made him promise to check in every day. "After moving in with their aunt in New Jersey. Made it to school. Mrs. Jenkins bringing cookies for your birthday. Wish you could come." Emily's throat tightened. Her 28th birthday, and she'd be spending it scrubbing toilets used by people who spent more on lunch than she made in a week. But the overtime would help with Michael's orthodontist bill. She typed back, "Tell her thanks. Save me one. Proud of you, kiddo." Then added 3 heart emojis because he was still young enough not to find them embarrassing. The executive boardroom was her first stop. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Manhattan awakening beneath a violet sky. For a moment, just one brief stolen moment, Emily allowed herself to stand where the executive stood, looking out at the empire below. In another life, she might have been one of them, striding confidently through these halls in Italian leather shoes, instead of the orthopedic sneakers that pinched her toes. Emily ran her hand across the polished mahogany table where decisions affecting thousands of lives were made daily. 24 leather chairs surrounded it, each probably worth more than her entire student loan payment. She grimaced at the thought of those loans, $180,000 hanging around her neck like an invisible noose tightening with each passing month. "Excuse me." Emily flinched, nearly knocking over her cart. Standing in the doorway was a woman in her 40s, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit despite the early hour. "Ms. Winters." Emily nodded respectfully, recognizing the chief operating officer. "I'm almost finished." The woman's gaze swept over Emily with the casual disinterest of someone looking at furniture. "The board meeting starts at 8 sharp. Make sure you're done by 7. "Yes, ma'am." Ms. Winters turned to leave, then paused. "And make sure you properly clean the coffee rings this time. Mr. Reynolds notices these things." When the door closed, Emily's shoulders slumped. Nathan Reynolds, tech genius billionaire, the man whose name adorned the building. She'd glimpsed him exactly twice in 2 years. Both times, he'd been surrounded by an entourage of assistants and executives, moving through the building like a planet with moons in orbit. Emily methodically wiped down the table, her movements, precise and practiced. Each circular motion reminded her of her mother, how she'd taught Emily to clean when they'd first arrived in America. "Do it right the first time," she'd say in their native tongue. "That way, no one can ever say we don't belong." Her mother had believed in the American dream until cancer took her, leaving behind nothing but medical bills and memories. Emily had been halfway through her linguistics degree when the diagnosis came. She'd finished school while caring for her dying mother, translating medical jargon between exhausted doctors and her increasingly frail parent. 5 languages, Emily muttered to herself as she sprayed glass cleaner on the enormous windows. Fat lot of good they're doing me now. As she cleaned, Emily mentally translated her movements into different languages, a private game to keep. Her mind sharp. Essuyer la table. Den Tisch abwischen. Afwegen de Tafel. Teburu wo shiku. Her phone rang, the special ringtone she'd set for Sophia, her Dutch friend from her semester abroad. Without checking the time difference, Emily answered, switching effortlessly to Dutch. Sophia, hoe gaat het met je? Ik heb je gemist. The familiar sounds of her friend's language rolled off her tongue like she'd never left Amsterdam. Sophia's voice bubbled with excitement on the other end. Emily, I've been trying to reach you for days. I have the most incredible news. Remember Professor Visser? He's starting that international translation agency we always talked about, and he specifically asked for you. The salary is amazing, and there's an apartment included. Emily's heart raced as she continued dusting, phone tucked between her ear and shoulder. That's incredible. But Sophia, you know I can't leave Michael. And the timing. Emily, this is the opportunity we dreamed about in college. You can bring Michael later once you're settled. You're wasting your talent cleaning offices for rich Americans. Emily switched to a new section of windows, unaware that the boardroom door had silently opened behind her. Het is niet zo eenvoudig. Sophia, ik heb verantwoordelijkheden hier. De medische rekeningen van mijn moeder, Michael's school. Ik kan niet zomaar alles achterlaten. She continued in rapid Dutch, explaining her financial situation, how she was underwater with debt but seeing small progress, how leaving now would mean abandoning her brother when he needed stability most, how America had taken so much from her, but she wasn't ready to admit defeat. Bovendien, Emily added with a hollow laugh, wie zou ervoor zorgen dat deze rijke mensen hun perfecte uitzicht op Manhattan hebben? As she turned to reach for another cleaning cloth, Emily froze. In the doorway stood Nathan Reynolds himself, watching her with an inscrutable expression. Unlike the distant figure she'd glimpsed before, here he was just 15 feet away, tall, with penetrating blue eyes and silver-streaked dark hair. He wore no tie, his white shirt open at the collar, a tablet in his hand. Sophia, ik moet gaan, Emily whispered urgently into the phone. Ik bel je later terug. She ended the call, heart hammering against her ribs. Mr. Reynolds, she stammered. I'm so sorry, I'll be out of your way immediately. But Nathan Reynolds didn't move from the doorway. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, studying her with the focused intensity that had made him a legend in the business world. That was Dutch, wasn't it? He asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Emily nodded, already calculating how quickly she could gather her supplies and disappear. Interesting, he said, more to himself than to her. Then, to Emily's astonishment, he switched to flawless Dutch. Het is zeldzaam om iemand in New York tegen te komen die vloeiend Nederlands spreekt. Emily's professional mask slipped for just a moment, her eyes widening in surprise. U spreekt Nederlands? My company has offices in Amsterdam, he replied, switching back to English with an amused smile. I make it a point to learn the basics wherever we do business. He stepped fully into the room now, setting his tablet on the table. But you speak it like a native. I studied there for a semester, Emily answered, painfully aware of her grey uniform, of the cleaning cart beside her, of the vast gulf between their positions in life. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. Columbia, right? Linguistics? The floor seemed to tilt beneath Emily's feet. How did you... Your name tag says Emily, he explained, gesturing to the plastic badge clipped to her uniform. Emily Thompson. You started here 2 years ago, right after graduating cum laude. A chill ran down Emily's spine. Why would Nathan Reynolds, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, know anything about her? Sir, I should really finish up before... Your meeting. What other languages do you speak, Emily? He interrupted, as if they were having a normal conversation, as if she weren't a cleaner and he weren't one of the richest men in America. She hesitated then. English, French, German, and Japanese. And Dutch, obviously. Something shifted in his expression, a spark of what looked almost like triumph. Perfect, he said softly. Then louder, Emily Thompson, how would you like to put those languages to better use than cleaning my boardroom? The morning sun broke over the Manhattan skyline, flooding the room with golden light that seemed to hang between them like a promise or a warning. I don't understand, Emily whispered. Nathan Reynolds smiled, a genuine smile that transformed, his face from intimidating to almost boyish. You will. He checked his watch, a timepiece worth more than Emily's annual salary. Be in my office at 5 p.m. today, 55th floor. He turned to leave, then paused. And Emily? Don't mention this to anyone. The door closed behind him, leaving Emily alone with her cleaning cart and the impossible conversation that had just occurred. She looked down at her hands, reddened from cleaning chemicals, a far cry from the manicured executives who normally occupied this room. What did Nathan Reynolds want from her? And why did it feel like the floor beneath her feet had suddenly become quicksand? Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Michael. Don't forget Aunt needs money for my field trip by Friday. Emily looked out at the Manhattan skyline, the city of broken dreams and second chances. This isn't forever, she whispered to herself, but for the first time in years, the words felt like they might actually be true. Emily's hands trembled as she finished her shift, the encounter with Nathan Reynolds replaying in her mind like a fever dream. Had it really happened? Why would one of the richest men in America take an interest in a cleaning lady who happened to speak Dutch? The subway, ride to her Bronx apartment, was a blur. Emily clutched the pole, swaying with the train's rhythm, invisible among the mass of exhausted workers heading home. The woman pressed against her wore a designer coat that probably cost 3 months of Emily's salary. She smelled of expensive perfume and privilege. Just 5 more stops, Emily whispered, closing her eyes against the crushing fatigue. Her phone buzzed, a text from her landlord. Rent increase next month, 175 more. Take it or leave it. Emily's stomach clenched. She'd been barely making ends meet as it was, sending half her paycheck to her aunt for Michael's expenses. This would mean cutting back on groceries, maybe selling her mother's gold earrings, the last tangible piece of her heritage. The apartment was dark when she arrived, her roommate Lucia working a double shift at the hospital. The silence felt suffocating. Emily sank onto her thin mattress, too exhausted to even cry. Beneath her bed lay the wooden box containing her Columbia diploma, sealed away like some ancient artifact from a different life. "Mom, what am I supposed to do?" she whispered to the empty room. The photo on her nightstand showed her mother's face, beautiful, determined, and forever young, taken before the cancer hollowed her cheeks and dimmed her eyes, before America's healthcare system bankrupted them both. Emily pulled out her phone, tempted to call Sophia back. The Amsterdam job would solve everything, a fresh start, away from crushing debt and painful memories. But then Michael's face flashed in her mind. 13 years old, still waking from nightmares about their mother's final days. She couldn't abandon him now. The alarm clock read 3:30 p.m. In 90 minutes, she would meet Nathan Reynolds in his office. Emily opened her closet. Shabby uniforms, faded jeans, nothing suitable for meeting a CEO. Her one nice outfit, a navy blue dress from a thrift store, hung in the back. She'd worn it to her mother's funeral. As Emily showered, scrubbing the smell of cleaning products from her skin, anxiety twisted in her gut. What if this was some cruel joke? Or worse, what if he expected something inappropriate in exchange for whatever opportunity he was dangling? No, she couldn't think that way. Nathan Reynolds had a reputation as a business innovator, not a predator. Still, Emily slipped her pepper spray into her purse. In New York, hope was best tempered with precaution. The dress fit looser than before. Another reminder of meals skipped to stretch her budget. Emily applied the bare minimum of makeup, just enough to hide the dark circles under her eyes. Her reflection showed a woman trying desperately to look like she belonged in a world that had consistently told her she didn't. Back at Reynolds Tower, Emily bypassed the service entrance for the first time, walking nervously through the gleaming main lobby toward the executive elevators. The security guard, different from kind-hearted Ron, eyed her suspiciously. "ID, please." His tone suggested she'd already done something wrong. Emily fumbled for her employee badge. "I have a meeting with Mr. Reynolds." The guard's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. He made a show of examining her ID, then picked up his phone. After a brief conversation, his demeanor shifted from suspicion to confusion. 55th floor, Mr. Reynolds is expecting you." The executive elevator was nothing like the service car Emily usually took. Silent, swift, with walls of burnished bronze that reflected her anxious expression back at her. Each floor that passed increased her certainty that she was making a terrible mistake. When the doors opened on the 55th floor, Emily stepped into another world. The reception area was a minimalist showcase of wealth. White marble, subtle lighting, and a stunning view of Central Park. The receptionist, a polished woman with an elegant French twist, smiled with practiced warmth. "Ms. Thompson, Mr. Reynolds is on a call. Please wait there." She gestured to a seating area with leather chairs that probably cost more than Emily's entire education. Emily perched on the edge of one chair, afraid to sink fully into its luxury. On the coffee table lay financial magazines with Nathan Reynolds's face on several covers, the reclusive genius behind Reynolds Enterprises, Tech's most eligible bachelor, from startup to empire, the Reynolds Revolution. 10 minutes stretched to 20. Emily's initial nervousness curdled into humiliation. Was this some kind of power play, or had he simply forgotten about their strange morning encounter? Her phone buzzed. Michael again. "When are you coming to visit? Aunt Margie's boyfriend is being weird again." Emily's heart sank. Jason, her aunt's latest boyfriend, had a drinking problem and a temper. She'd been meaning to check in, but extra shifts had made it impossible. One more failure in a growing list. Just as Emily had decided to leave, the office door opened. Nathan Reynolds emerged, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, looking more like an overworked professor than a tech billionaire. "Emily," he smiled, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming. Please join me." She followed him into an office that defied expectations. No ostentatious displays of wealth, just clean lines, functional furniture, and those same breathtaking views. A photograph on his desk showed a much younger Nathan with an older woman. His mother, perhaps. "Please sit." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Would you like something to drink? Coffee? Water?" "Water, please," Emily replied, her mouth suddenly dry. As Nathan poured water from a crystal carafe, Emily noticed his hands, strong, with calluses that seemed at odds with his position. Working hands, like hers. "You're wondering why I asked?" "You here," he said, handing her the glass. Emily took a small sip, buying time. "Yes, sir. I'll be direct. I've been watching you for some time, Emily Thompson." The water nearly caught in her throat. "Watching me?" Nathan leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. "I make it my business to know the people who work for me, especially those whose potential is being wasted." Emily's heart hammered against her ribs as she waited for whatever would come next. An offer, a proposition, a revelation. The fate that had eluded her for so long suddenly seemed poised to reveal itself, for better or worse. "Watching me?" Emily repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The water glass trembled slightly in her hand. Nathan Reynolds leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving her face. Perhaps that was the wrong choice of words. "Let me explain." He pressed a button on his desk, and a holographic display appeared between them. Emily's personnel file materialized in glowing blue light. Her application, performance reviews, and a series of surveillance photos showing her working throughout the building. 3 months ago, I initiated a company-wide talent assessment. Not the standard HR nonsense. I wanted to know who was being overlooked. Nathan swiped his hand through the air, scrolling through the file. "You caught my attention." Emily stared at the digital ghost of herself cleaning executive offices, conference rooms, bathrooms. The invasion of privacy made her skin crawl. "Sir, I don't understand." "Your supervisor noted you complete your work 30% faster than other staff, with fewer complaints. You never call in sick, never request time off." He paused on an image of Emily helping an elderly janitor lift a heavy trash bin. "And you show consideration for others, even when no one's watching." Emily's cheeks burned. "You've been spying. On me?" "I've been evaluating you," Nathan corrected. "This morning confirmed what I suspected. You're extraordinarily overqualified for your position." He pulled up another document, Emily's academic record from Columbia. Her perfect GPA glowed mockingly between them. Linguistics, with specializations in Germanic and Asian language families. Thesis on sociolinguistic adaptations in immigrant communities. Nathan looked up. Impressive. Emily's hands curled into fists beneath the desk. "If you knew all this, why keep me scrubbing toilets for 2 years?" "I didn't know. Not until recently." Nathan swiped the display away. "The system failed you, Emily, and I failed by trusting the system." He rose suddenly, moving to the floor-to-ceiling window. Manhattan sprawled beneath them, bathed in late afternoon light. "Do you know how many of our international deals fall apart due to cultural and linguistic misunderstandings? Last quarter alone, we lost a $30 million contract in Osaka because our translator missed a crucial idiom." Emily remained silent, unsure where this was heading. "I need someone who understands not just words but contexts, someone who can navigate cultural nuances." He turned to face her. "I'm offering you a position as our global communications strategist. The room seemed to tilt. What? Starting salary $175,000, plus full benefits and stock options. Nathan stated it matter-of-factly, as if he hadn't just thrown her a lifeline from another universe. Emily's mind raced. The amount was staggering, nearly 10 times her current salary. It would clear her mother's medical debt in months, not decades. Michael could attend a better school, away from Aunt Margie's toxic boyfriend. She could finally breathe. Yet suspicion gnawed at her. Nothing in life came this easily, especially not for women like her. Why me? There must be thousands of qualified linguists in New York. Qualified on paper, perhaps. Nathan returned to his desk. But they don't have your life experience. You've navigated systems designed to exclude you. You understand struggle, in ways Ivy League trust fund kids never will. He pulled up another file. Resumes of people who'd interviewed for similar positions. All white, mostly male, all from privileged backgrounds. Wall Street calls this culture fit, Nathan said with distaste. I call it systemic waste of talent. Emily's throat tightened. For years, she'd fought against the invisible barriers holding her back. Now this man, this billionaire who couldn't possibly understand her life, was claiming to see her worth. What's the catch, Mr. Reynolds? Nathan, please. He smiled slightly. The catch is you'll work harder than you ever have. You'll face executives who'll question your qualifications. You'll travel extensively, often with little notice. A photo appeared on the display. Emily in her graduation robe, arm around her mother who was already thin from chemo, both smiling despite everything. Emily's breath caught. How did you get that? Your social media is private but not impenetrable. Nathan's voice softened. Your mother looks proud. Tears threatened, but Emily refused to cry in front of him. She was. My offer expires tomorrow morning, Nathan said. Think about it overnight. If you accept, be here at 9 a.m. If not, no hard feelings. You'll retain your current position with a modest raise. Emily stood on trembling legs. I need to go. Of course. Nathan extended his hand. Whatever you decide, Emily, remember this. That woman in the photo believed you were destined for more than cleaning up after people who don't see you. His words hit like a physical blow. Emily shook his hand automatically, his palm warm against her cold fingers, then fled. The subway ride home was a blur of noise and confusion. Emily clutched a pole, the other passengers a smear of colors as her mind churned. Could she trust this offer? Trust him? What if this was elaborate manipulation? Or worse, what if it was real, and she failed spectacularly? Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother. Jason broke Aunt's dishes again, fighting bad. Can I come stay with you? Emily's heart sank. Michael couldn't stay in her tiny shared apartment. Her landlord would evict them both, but she couldn't leave him in that volatile situation either. I'll figure something out, she texted back. Stay in your room with the door locked. I love you. At home, Emily pulled out the wooden box containing her diploma. The parchment felt foreign in her hands. Someone else's life, someone else's dreams. Beside it lay her mother's journal, filled with hopeful entries from when they'd first arrived in America. Emily will have every opportunity here, one passage read. All the doors that were closed to me will be open to her. Those doors had remained firmly shut. Until today, Emily called Sophia in Amsterdam, her oldest friend, and the only person she could trust with this impossible situation. It sounds too good to be true, Sophia said after Emily explained. Men like Reynolds don't just pluck cleaners from obscurity without wanting something in return. He seemed sincere, Emily countered, but doubt crept into her voice. Just be careful, Em. Corporate America isn't kind to women who look like us. Sophia paused. But if it's legitimate, God, Em, you deserve this chance. Take it. After hanging up, Emily paced her tiny bedroom. Outside, sirens wailed. Another night in a borough forgotten by the gleaming Manhattan towers where she'd spent her day. Her phone rang. Michael again. He hit her, Em, her brother whispered. I'm scared. Emily's decision crystallized instantly. Pack a bag, she told him. I'm coming to get you tonight. She hastily packed an overnight bag, emptied her meager savings account, and caught the next train to New Jersey. By midnight, she was helping Michael sneak out of their aunt's house, while Jason's drunken snores echoed from the living room. They spent the night in a cheap motel, Michael finally sleeping soundly beside her. Emily watched his face in the dim light, so much like their mother's, trusting that his big sister would fix everything. Dawn found her staring at her phone, Nathan Reynolds' business card displayed on the screen. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Michael, about finally honoring her mother's sacrifice. At 8:30 a.m., Emily stood outside Reynolds Tower wearing the same navy dress, her brother waiting at a nearby diner with instructions to call the police if she didn't check in hourly. "This is crazy," she whispered to herself as she pushed through the revolving door. "This doesn't happen to people like us." The receptionist on the 55th floor smiled in recognition. "Ms. Thompson, Mr. Reynolds is expecting you." Nathan stood as she entered, his expression unreadable. "You've made your decision?" Emily straightened her shoulders, channeling her mother's determination. "Yes, but I have conditions." Nathan's eyebrow raised slightly. "I'm listening. My brother needs a safe place to live today, and I need an advance on my first paycheck." Her voice remained steady despite her racing heart. "Those are my terms." A slow smile spread across Nathan's face. "I was right about you." He extended his hand. "Welcome to Reynolds Enterprises, Emily Thompson." As they shook hands, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with a force she didn't fully understand. For better or worse, there was no going back now. The corporate wardrobe arrived at Emily's apartment that evening. 5 designer suits, blouses, shoes, and accessories, all in her exact size. The delivery included a note. "First day tomorrow. Xiam car will pick you up at 7:15. NR." Emily ran her fingers over the fabric of a charcoal grey blazer that probably cost more than 3 months' rent. Michael whistled from the doorway of their new temporary housing, a company apartment Nathan had arranged within hours of their agreement. "Are you like rich now?" he asked, eyes wide at the spread of expensive clothing. Emily forced a smile. "Not exactly, but things will be better, I promise." After Michael fell asleep in his own bedroom, a luxury he hadn't experienced since their mother died, Emily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her reflection in the floor-length mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger in borrowed finery, playing dress-up in someone else's life. "What am I doing?" she whispered. Tomorrow she would walk into Reynolds Enterprises as an executive, not a cleaner. The thought terrified her. Sleep eluded her. By dawn she'd memorized the ceiling patterns and rehearsed 100 versions of her inevitable failure. The car arrived precisely at 7:15, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The driver called her Ms. Thompson, with the same deference once reserved for the executives she'd cleaned up after. Reynolds Tower looked different from the passenger seat of a luxury car. Emily straightened her spine as she walked through the main entrance chin high despite the knot in her stomach. The security guard who had once scrutinized her ID now nodded respectfully. "Good morning, Ms. Thompson. 55th floor?" In the executive elevator, Emily encountered Victoria Winters, the COO who had barely glanced at her 2 days earlier. Today, the woman looked directly at her, confusion flickering across her perfect features. "You're new?" Victoria asked, her gaze sweeping over Emily's expensive suit. "Global Communications Strategist," Emily replied, the title still foreign on her tongue. "Emily Thompson." Victoria's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "I wasn't aware we were filling that position. Who hired you?" "Mr. Reynolds, directly." Something hardened in Victoria's expression. "How unusual." The elevator doors opened, saving Emily from further interrogation. Nathan's assistant, a brisk woman named Diane, was waiting. "Ms. Thompson, welcome. Your office is ready, and Mr. Reynolds has scheduled a department introduction at 9:30. Emily followed Diane down a hallway of glass-walled offices. Employees looked up from their desks, curious gazes following her progress. Their whispers weren't quite quiet enough. "Who's the new girl?" "Diversity hire, obviously. Reynolds' latest pet project." Her office was a corner space with breathtaking views of Central Park, a far cry from the supply closet where she'd once eaten lunch. The desk bore a welcome basket and a company laptop. "Mr. Reynolds suggested you might appreciate this," Diane said, handing Emily a small box. Inside was a silver frame holding the photo of Emily and her mother at graduation, the same one Nathan had somehow obtained from her social media. Something about seeing it here in this alien environment made Emily's chest tighten painfully. "Thank you," she managed. Diane nodded professionally. "The executive team meeting is in the Hyde conference room. Mr. Reynolds requests you bring the Japanese market analysis." After Diane left, panic set in. "What Japanese market analysis?" Emily frantically searched her desk, finding nothing. Her computer required login credentials she didn't have. With 15 minutes until the meeting, cold sweat beaded on her forehead. A knock at her door revealed a young man with rumpled clothes and kind eyes. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad," he said with a gentle smile. "I'm Alex. Chen, Technology Development." Emily exhaled shakily. "Emily Thompson. And I'm supposed to bring a Japanese market analysis to a meeting I didn't know about until 2 minutes ago." Alex laughed. "Classic Reynolds initiation. He's testing you." He pulled a flash drive from his pocket. "Here's the analysis. Read it. Turn the elevator, it's only 3 pages. "Why are you helping me?" Emily asked suspiciously. Alex shrugged. "Because 6 months ago I was you, Reynolds' newest experiment. The exec team already has a betting pool on how long you'll last." He pointed to his own eyes, which Emily now noticed were slightly reddened. "I've been here 36 hours straight finishing a project. Welcome to the big leagues." Emily memorized the market analysis during the elevator ride, heart pounding. As she approached the conference room, inside 12 executives in expensive suits sat around a mahogany table, the same one she'd cleaned countless times. Nathan sat at the head, engaged in quiet conversation with Victoria Winters. The room fell silent as Emily entered. Nathan smiled. "Ah, Emily, perfect timing. Please, join us." The only empty seat was directly across from Victoria, whose icy gaze tracked Emily's every movement. Emily placed the market analysis on the table, grateful her hands weren't visibly shaking. "Since we're all here," Nathan began, "let me introduce our newest team member. Emily Thompson joins us as Global Communications Strategist, focusing on international market expansion." "Impressive title for someone so new," remarked a silver-haired man at Victoria's right. "Daniel Preston, Chief Financial Officer, according to the nameplate." "What's your background, Ms. Thompson?" Before Emily could answer, Nathan interjected. "Columbia, linguistics, 5 languages, including Japanese." "Fascinating," Victoria said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "And your previous position?" The question hung in the air. Everyone waited for Emily's response, the silence stretching painfully. She felt the weight of 24 eyes, all watching for her to crack. "I worked in building operations," Emily said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "I've been with Reynolds Enterprises for 2 years." Confusion rippled around the table. Victoria's smile widened with predatory satisfaction. "Building operations? You mean maintenance?" "Ms. Thompson was our most valuable asset in facility management," Nathan stated firmly. "Now she'll be our most valuable asset in global communications. The Tokyo presentation, please, Emily." Emily's mind went blank. There had been no mention of a presentation. Victoria leaned forward. "Perhaps our new colleague isn't prepared." Something snapped inside Emily. After years of being invisible, of swallowing her pride, of cleaning up after people like Victoria, rage burned through her veins like wildfire. "Actually," Emily said, standing and taking the remote Nathan offered, "I am prepared." She hadn't prepared anything, of course, but she had cleaned this room while these same executives discussed the Tokyo deal for weeks. She'd absorbed every detail while emptying their trash cans and refilling their water pitchers. For 30 minutes, Emily outlined the challenges of the Japanese market, incorporating details from the analysis Alex had provided and knowledge she'd gathered during her invisible hours in this very room. She spoke with the confidence of someone with nothing left to lose, switching seamlessly to Japanese when discussing cultural nuances. When she finished, the room was silent. Daniel Preston's mouth hung slightly open. Victoria's knuckles were white around her pen. Nathan's smile contained something like pride. Questions? No one spoke. "Excellent. Emily will oversee all communication for the Tokyo launch next month. Victoria, please ensure your team provides her with complete access to the project files." Victoria's smile was brittle. Of course. As the meeting dispersed, Emily felt the executives' gazes sliding away from her, some impressed, others resentful. She had survived round 1, but the message was clear. She didn't belong here. Alex Chen appeared at her side as she returned to her office. "You're still standing. That's more than most manage after a Preston Winters interrogation." Emily sank into her chair, adrenaline draining. "This was a test. Everything here is a test," Alex confirmed. "And now you're officially in the Shark Tank." Later that afternoon, Emily found a handwritten note slipped under her door. "First blood to you. But the war has just begun. VW." Emily stared at the elegant script, reality crashing down around her. She had survived today, but Victoria Winters would make sure tomorrow was worse, and the day after, and the day after that. The woman who had once been invisible was now the most visible person at Reynolds Enterprises, a target painted on her back, her every move scrutinized for the inevitable failure. Everyone except Nathan Reynolds seemed to expect. Emily's phone buzzed. Michael asking when she'd be home. Home. The word felt hollow now. She belonged nowhere. Not in the executive suite, not in her temporary luxury apartment, not in the Bronx walk-up she'd left behind. She was adrift between worlds, and the currents were already pulling her under. 3 weeks into her new position, Emily sat alone in the executive dining room, picking at a salad she couldn't afford to waste, but had no appetite to eat. Around her, conversations hushed as executives glanced her way, before resuming in whispers. She had grown accustomed to the phenomenon, the Emily effect, as Alex had dubbed it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Got an A on my history paper. New school is awesome. When will you be home tonight? A pang of guilt stabbed through her chest. She'd barely seen her brother lately, leaving before dawn and returning after he was asleep, exhausted from the daily battle to prove her worth. The new private school Nathan had arranged was giving Michael opportunities she'd never dreamed possible, but at what cost to their relationship? Probably late again, she typed back. Dinner in the fridge. Proud of you. Everything okay? You seem different lately. Emily stared at his message, unsure how to respond. How could she explain that surviving in this world meant becoming someone else, someone harder, someone who could absorb the daily slights and sabotage without breaking? Just tired. Love you, she replied finally. She looked up to find Victoria, Winters watching her from across the room, a calculated smile playing on her perfect lips. Beside her sat Daniel Preston and James Morrison, head of legal, Victoria's unofficial coalition of allies. They hadn't spoken directly to Emily since the conference room confrontation, operating instead through a sophisticated campaign of exclusion. Emily's email mysteriously disappeared from critical communication chains. Meeting times changed without notice. Documents she needed were perpetually being updated. None of it traceable, all of it designed to ensure her failure. Only Alex Chen and, surprisingly, Diane, Nathan's no-nonsense assistant, had shown her any kindness. But even they couldn't help with the isolation that followed Emily like a shadow. Mind if I join you? Emily looked up to find Nathan Reynolds standing beside her table, lunch tray in hand. Conversations throughout the dining room ceased immediately. Of course, she managed, hyper-aware of the dozens of eyes tracking their interaction. Nathan sat across from her, seemingly oblivious to the stir he'd caused. In 3 weeks, they'd had exactly 2 brief meetings. Nathan's schedule kept him constantly traveling between global offices. The Tokyo team was impressed with your cultural adaptation recommendations, he said, casually unwrapping his silverware. You've saved us from at least 3 potential PR disasters. Emily nodded stiffly. I'm glad I could help. Nathan studied her, those penetrating blue eyes missing nothing. You look exhausted. I'm fine. The circles under your eyes suggest otherwise. He took a bite of his sandwich. How's Michael settling in? The mention of her brother caught Emily off guard. He likes his new school. Good. Teenagers need stability. Nathan wiped his mouth with a napkin. And how are you finding your colleagues? The question hung between them, loaded with implications. Emily chose her words carefully. Everyone has been informative. Nathan's lips twitched slightly. Diplomatically put. He glanced around the room, where executives pretended not to be watching them. Victoria giving you trouble? Nothing I can't handle, Emily replied automatically. I didn't ask if you could handle it. I asked if she was giving you trouble. Something inside Emily hardened. With all due respect, sir, I don't need you to fight my battles. Nathan's eyebrows rose slightly, but approval flickered in his eyes. Fair enough. He checked his watch. Speaking of battles, we have the investor call in 20 minutes. Walk with me? As they left together, Emily felt Victoria's glacial stare boring into her back. The alliance with Nathan would only intensify the target on her head, but refusing wasn't an option. In the elevator, Nathan's demeanor shifted slightly. The board meeting next week includes the full international team. I need you to prepare the cross-cultural communication strategy. Emily's stomach dropped. The board meeting. Isn't that usually handled by... Usually, yes. This time, you. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. It's a significant opportunity, Emily. Don't waste it. Before she could respond, Nathan was gone, swept away by Diane and a cluster of waiting executives. Back in her office, Emily sank into her chair, panic rising like a tide. The board presentation was the most visible assignment possible, and the most dangerous. Success could cement her position. Failure would vindicate Victoria's campaign against her. Her computer pinged with an email from Victoria. Heard about your board presentation. Attached is the template used for the last 10 years. Best not to deviate from tradition. The attached file was clearly outdated, emphasizing metrics that the company had moved away from months ago. Trap, poorly disguised. Emily's desk phone rang, her first official call to the direct line. Global Communications. Emily Thompson speaking. Ms. Thompson. The voice was male, heavily accented in Japanese. Tanaka Hiroaki. We met during last week's video conference. Emily switched seamlessly to Japanese. Mr. Tanaka, how can I help you? I prefer English for business matters, he replied curtly. There is concern among Tokyo partners about your appointment. Your predecessor had 30 years of experience. You have 3 weeks. The implication was clear. Her position was being questioned not just internally, but by international stakeholders. I understand your concerns, Emily replied, keeping her voice steady. Perhaps we could schedule a call to discuss specific issues? That won't be necessary. Victoria Winters has already assured us she's personally overseeing all communication strategy. The line went dead before Emily could respond. Her hands trembled as she set down the phone. Victoria wasn't just undermining her internally, she was actively sabotaging Emily's relationships with international partners. A knock at her door revealed Alex, his expression grim. Bad news. They're gutting your presentation time at tomorrow's department meeting. Down from 20 minutes to 5, they can't do that. Nathan specifically requested. Nathan's leaving for Singapore tonight. Won't be back until after the meeting. Alex leaned against her doorframe. Look, this is how they operate, death by 1,000 cuts. No single action egregious enough to complain about, but together they ensure I fail. Emily finished. Alex nodded soberly. For what it's worth, you've lasted longer than anyone expected. Most of Nathan's projects crack within days. His words meant as encouragement, only twisted the knife deeper. Is that all she was to Nathan, a social experiment? A diversity token to appease his conscience? That night, Emily worked until midnight, preparing for a presentation she would never be allowed to give properly. When she finally arrived at the apartment, she found Michael asleep on the couch, textbooks spread around him. A note sat on the coffee table. Waited up to show you my paper. Maybe tomorrow. Emily gently covered him with a blanket, her heart breaking at the dark circles under his eyes, so similar to her own. This new life was supposed to be better for both of them. Instead, she was losing Michael just as surely as she was losing herself. Her phone buzzed with an email from an unknown address. The subject line made her blood run cold. What Nathan Reynolds really wants from you. The email contained a single attachment, an article from 3 years ago about a harassment lawsuit against Reynolds Enterprises, quietly settled out of court. The female executive involved had been another of Nathan's special projects, promoted rapidly from an administrative position. She'd left the company immediately after the settlement. Emily's hands shook as she deleted the email. It had to be Victoria planting seeds of doubt. Yet the article was real. She'd found it herself with a quick search. What did Nathan really want from her? And how much of herself would be left when he was done? The boardroom fell silent as Emily concluded her presentation. 14 pairs of eyes scrutinized her from around the massive table. Board members, executives, and international team leaders who had flown in for the quarterly meeting. Victoria Winters sat directly across from her, a predatory smile playing on her lips. "Thank you, Ms. Thompson," said Richard Hargrove, the 70-year-old chairman of the board. "That was unconventional." Emily forced herself to maintain eye contact. "The international market demands unconventional thinking, sir." Indeed. Hargrove's expression remained unreadable. "Ms. Winters, your thoughts?" Victoria sat forward, perfectly poised in her designer suit. "While Ms. Thompson's enthusiasm is quite charming, I believe her inexperience is evident in this proposal. Completely restructuring our international communication protocols after only a month with the company seems premature at best, reckless at worst." Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Emily felt her carefully constructed facade beginning to crack. She had spent the entire week preparing this presentation, sacrificing sleep and what little time she had with Michael. The strategy itself was solid. She knew it was. But Victoria had poisoned the well before Emily even entered the room. Perhaps, Victoria continued smoothly, in a few years after Ms. Thompson has developed a deeper understanding of our corporate culture, her ideas might be worth revisiting. The dismissal was so artfully constructed that Emily could almost admire the craftsmanship. Victoria had effectively reminded everyone of Emily's outsider status while appearing supportive of her future potential. I disagree. The voice came from the doorway. Nathan Reynolds stood there, apparently having slipped in during the presentation. His sudden appearance sent a ripple of surprise through the room. He was supposed to be in Singapore until tomorrow. Nathan, Victoria recovered first, her smile tightening. We weren't expecting you until... Clearly. Nathan moved to the head of the table. Mr. Tanaka, your thoughts on Ms. Thompson's proposal? The Japanese executive who had called Emily directly looked startled at being addressed. It is interesting. Different from what Ms. Winters suggested during our private meeting. Emily's stomach dropped. Private meeting? Victoria had deliberately gone behind her back to undermine her with the Tokyo team. Nathan turned to Emily. Ms. Thompson, would you explain the cultural significance of the communication shift you're proposing, specifically for our Japanese partners? Taking a deep breath, Emily switched to fluent Japanese, addressing Mr. Tanaka directly. She explained how her approach incorporated specific cultural nuances that Western communication strategies often missed, the importance of subtle hierarchical acknowledgements, the concept of reading the air, and the unspoken expectations in Japanese business culture. Mr. Tanaka's demeanor transformed, his formal reserve melting into surprised respect as they conversed in his native tongue. When Emily finished, he spoke in English for the benefit of the room. Ms. Thompson understands what many American executives miss. This approach honors our cultural perspective rather than simply translating American methods. He nodded to Emily. I withdraw my earlier concerns. Victoria's face flushed with barely contained fury. Then it's settled, Nathan stated. We'll implement Ms. Thompson's strategy for the Tokyo launch next month. His gaze swept the room. Any objections? None came, though Emily could feel Victoria's rage radiating across the table like heat from a furnace. As the meeting adjourned, Emily gathered her materials, her hands trembling with residual adrenaline. She had survived, barely, but Victoria's humiliation would come at a price. Nathan approached her as the room emptied. Walk with me. They moved silently down the corridor to his private elevator. Once inside, Emily's professional mask cracked. You knew, she accused. You knew Victoria was sabotaging me with the Tokyo team. I suspected. Nathan's expression remained impassive. I needed to see how you'd handle it. Handle it? Emily's voice rose despite her efforts to control it. This isn't a game, Mr. Reynolds. These are people's lives, my life, my brother's future. No, Nathan's voice hardened. This isn't a game. It's business. Victoria was testing your mettle. If you couldn't handle her, you wouldn't survive in this industry. So I'm just a lab rat in your corporate experiment. The anonymous email about the harassment case flashed through Emily's mind. Another one of your special projects. Something dangerous flashed in Nathan's eyes. Careful, Ms. Thompson. Why me? Emily demanded, past caring about consequences. What do you really want? The elevator doors opened onto Nathan's private office suite. He strode out without answering, leaving Emily no choice but to follow. Inside his office, Nathan poured 2 glasses of whiskey, sliding one across his desk. Toward her. Drink. You look like you need it. Emily ignored the glass. Answer my question. Nathan studied her for a long moment. You remind me of someone. Who? Your last project? The one who filed the harassment suit? The glass in Nathan's hand stilled halfway to his lips. You've been doing your research. Wouldn't you in my position? He set the glass down carefully. Rebecca Miller's case was settled because fighting it would have cost more than paying her to go away. Her allegations were false, but perception matters more than truth in the court of public opinion. Emily wasn't sure she believed him. That doesn't answer my original question. Why me? Nathan moved to the window, gazing out at the Manhattan skyline. My mother was a cleaning lady, he said finally. Single parent, 3 jobs. Brilliant woman who never had a chance to prove it. She died of cancer when I was at MIT. No health insurance. The parallel to Emily's own story was too precise to be coincidence. He'd been watching her long before the Dutch phone call, had probably known about her mother's death, her struggle with medical debt. So I'm what? Your redemption. Project? A way to make peace with your mother's ghost? Nathan turned, his expression unreadable. You're an investment, Miss Thompson. Nothing more, nothing less. The clinical detachment in his voice felt like a slap. Emily had begun to think of Nathan as an ally, perhaps even a friend. Now she saw the truth. She was merely a line item in Nathan Reynolds' personal balance sheet. And if your investment doesn't pay off, she asked quietly, then we part ways. Business is business. Nathan's tone softened slightly. But for what it's worth, I believe you'll exceed expectations. Today proved that. Before Emily could respond, her phone buzzed urgently. Multiple messages from Michael. She glanced down and froze. I need to go, she said, already moving toward the door. Family emergency, Nathan nodded. Take the company car. 40 minutes later, Emily burst into the principal's office at Michael's school. Her brother sat in a chair, head bowed, sporting a split lip and bruised knuckles. What happened? She demanded. The principal, a stern woman in her 50s, gestured to the chair beside Michael. Your brother assaulted another student. He called you a whore, Michael muttered, not looking up. Said you only got your job because you're sleeping with Reynolds. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Michael, is it true? He demanded suddenly, looking up with tears in his eyes. Is that why we got all this? The apartment, the school, is it because you and him? No. Emily knelt beside him, taking his injured hands. Michael, no, it's not like that. Then why does everyone think it is? The kids at school, their parents, they all talk about it. About us. Emily's heart shattered. In her desperate climb to provide Michael a better life, she'd inadvertently made him a target. The principal cleared her throat. Given the circumstances, we're suspending Michael for 3 days. Further incidents will result in expulsion. Outside in the car, Michael stared silently out the window, a stranger in a private school uniform. I want to go back to my old school, he said finally. Back to Aunt Margie's. Michael, you can't. Jason is gone. Aunt Margie kicked him out last week. Michael turned to her, his young face too old with betrayal. At least there, nobody thinks my sister is a... Don't, Emily whispered, her voice breaking. Please don't say it. The silence that followed felt like the end of everything she'd fought for. Emily had survived Victoria's machinations, Nathan's manipulation, and the corporate battlefield, only to lose what mattered most. Her brother was slipping away, a casualty of her desperate gamble for a better life, and Emily wasn't sure she had anything left to save him with. Emily stared at the resignation letter on her laptop screen, cursor blinking accusingly at the end of her carefully crafted final paragraph. After 3 sleepless nights, the decision had crystallized with painful clarity. She would return to her old life, her old struggles. At least there, Michael had been happy. At least there, they'd had each other. Her brother hadn't spoken more than 10 words to her since the school incident. 3 days ago, he remained locked in his room in their luxury apartment, a stranger behind a closed door. When Emily had suggested returning to their old neighborhood, he'd simply shrugged. Even the prospect of escape no longer animated him. The telephone on her desk rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was 7 a.m., too early for most calls. Emily. Thompson, she answered automatically. Ms. Thompson. The voice was unfamiliar, older, male. Richard Hargrove, we met at the board meeting. Emily straightened instinctively, though the chairman couldn't see her. Mr. Hargrove, how can I help you? I'd like you to join me for breakfast, the Terrace restaurant. 30 minutes. Before Emily could respond, the line went dead. She stared at the receiver, anxiety blooming in her chest. The chairman of the board didn't invite junior executives to breakfast unless something significant was happening. 30 minutes later, Emily was escorted to a secluded table on the restaurant's terrace where Richard Hargrove sat reading financial reports. In his 70s, with silver hair and penetrating grey eyes, he exuded the quiet authority of old money and established power. Ms. Thompson. He didn't stand as she approached. Coffee? Yes, thank you. Emily took the seat across from him, hyper-aware of her appearance. She'd chosen her most conservative suit, hair pulled back severely, minimal makeup, armor against whatever was coming. I'll be direct, Hargrove said after the waiter poured their coffee. Victoria Winters has filed a formal complaint against Nathan regarding your appointment. She's claiming favoritism, possible impropriety. Emily's blood ran cold. That's absurd. Is it? Hargrove studied her over his coffee cup. A cleaning lady promoted to executive level overnight. A young attractive woman given unprecedented access to the CEO. Luxurious accommodations arranged personally by Nathan. Surely you understand how it appears. With respect, sir, How it appears and what's true are different things. Truth is irrelevant, Miss Thompson. Perception is everything. Hargrove set down his cup. The board is concerned. Nathan has been erratic since his divorce. His judgment has been questioned. Emily flinched. Nathan was divorced. He'd never mentioned a wife, former or otherwise. This isn't the first time, Hargrove continued. There was an incident 3 years ago. Rebecca Miller, Emily supplied. I'm aware of the case. Hargrove's eyebrows rose slightly. Then you understand our position. The company cannot weather another scandal. What exactly are you suggesting, Mr. Hargrove? He slid a folder across the table. A lateral move, equal salary, different department, away from Nathan's direct supervision. Emily opened the folder. The position was in corporate social responsibility, a ceremonial role with no real influence, effectively a demotion disguised as a transfer. And if I refuse, then the board will be forced to investigate Victoria's allegations. Such investigations often reveal unexpected complications. The threat was thinly veiled. They would dig into her past, her family, Michael's situation, anything to discredit her. You have until Monday to decide. Hargrove signaled for the check. For what it's worth, I believe you're talented, but talent alone isn't enough in this world, Miss Thompson. You need savvy, politics, things that can't be learned cleaning boardrooms. The casual cruelty of his dismissal left Emily breathless. She had faced disdain before, but never so nakedly, never from someone with the power to destroy everything she'd built. Emily moved through the morning in a daze. Her resignation letter, still unsent, now joined by Hargrove's transfer offer. 2 escape routes, both painful, both admissions of defeat. At noon, her office phone rang again. Diane's clipped voice announced, "Mr. Reynolds requests your presence in the executive garage, immediately." Minutes later, Emily found Nathan waiting, beside a sleek black Porsche. "Get in," he said without preamble. "We need to talk, and these walls have ears." Emily hesitated, remembering Michael's bruised face, Hargrove's insinuations. "Mr. Reynolds—" "Nathan," he corrected. "And this isn't optional, Emily." Something in his tone, a rawness she hadn't heard before, made her comply. They drove in silence, Nathan navigating Manhattan traffic with precise, controlled movements. Emily noticed his knuckles were white on the steering wheel, tension radiating from his normally composed frame. They ended up at a small, nondescript diner in Queens, the kind of place Reynolds Enterprises executives would never be caught dead visiting. The vinyl booths were cracked, the laminate tables scratched with decades of graffiti. "Best pancakes in New York," Nathan explained as the waitress, an older woman who greeted him by name, led them to a corner booth. Only when coffee had been served and their order placed did Nathan finally speak. "Hargrove approached you this morning." It wasn't a question. Emily nodded. "And offered you a transfer to CSR. You knew?" "I suspected. It's their standard playbook." Nathan stirred his coffee methodically. "Victoria's making her move earlier than I expected." "Her move?" Emily felt her temper rising. "Is that all this is to you, some corporate chess game? My brother is being bullied because of rumors about us. My reputation is in tatters. And now the board is threatening to investigate me if I don't accept their offer. This isn't a game, Nathan. This is my life." Nathan's expression softened unexpectedly. "I know, and I'm sorry about Michael. Truly." His apology, seemingly genuine, caught Emily off guard. "Why did you bring me here?" "Because I need you to understand something before you make your decision." Nathan leaned forward. "Victoria isn't just gunning for you. She's using you to get to me. This is about control of the company." "What are you talking about?" "Reynolds Enterprises is at a crossroads. Victoria and Hargrove represent the old guard, profit above all, traditional hierarchies, closed systems. I'm pushing for something different, more inclusive, more innovative. And I'm collateral damage in your corporate civil war." Emily shook her head in disgust. "I should have known." "No," Nathan said firmly. "You're not collateral damage. You're proof of concept. Proof that talent can come from anywhere, not just Ivy League legacies and country club connections." Their food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. Emily stared at her plate, appetite gone. "I read your resignation letter," Nathan said quietly. "You left it open on your computer." Emily's head snapped up. "You went into my office?" "Accessed." "My computer." "Security protocol. When an executive doesn't log out properly, the system flags it." Nathan held up a hand as Emily began to protest. I know, invasion of privacy, but I'm glad I saw it. Why? Because it confirmed what I already suspected. You're willing to sacrifice everything you've earned to protect your brother. Nathan's eyes held something like respect. That's rare in our world, Emily. Most people I know would sacrifice their families for the corner office. Emily looked away, unwilling to let him see how his words affected her. Michael's all I have left. I understand that better than you think. Nathan pushed his barely touched food aside. My mother died alone in a hospital room while I was pitching investors 3,000 miles away. I chose ambition over family, and I've regretted it every day since. The raw pain in his voice sounded genuine, but Emily had learned to distrust appearances in the corporate world. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want you to make the same mistake. Nathan reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. This is the headmaster at Camden Academy. It's a boarding school in Connecticut. Small, prestigious, with an exceptional support system. Michael would be away from the rumors, the bullying, a fresh start. Emily stared at the card. I can't afford it. It's covered. A scholarship fund my mother established before she died. Nathan's eyes held hers steadily. No strings attached, Emily. Whether you stay at Reynolds or not, the scholarship is Michael's if he wants it. Why would you do this? Because some debts can never be repaid. Nathan glanced at his watch. You have the weekend to decide. About Michael, about the job, about all of it. But whatever you choose, know that Victoria and Hargrove are counting on you to run, to prove that people like you don't belong in their world. Emily felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong there. Or maybe, Nathan said softly, it's their world that needs to change. They drove back to the city in silence, Emily's mind racing with impossible choices. As they pulled up to Reynolds Tower, Nathan spoke one last time. For what it's worth, I never saw you as just an investment, Emily. That was a defensive reaction. The truth is more complicated. The truth usually is, Emily replied, stepping out of the car with the boarding school card clutched in her hand. One more option, one more impossible choice. In her office, Emily found Alex waiting, his expression grave. Victoria's called. An emergency department meeting. Everyone's talking about you and Nathan disappearing together. The rumors were spreading, exactly as Hargrove had warned. Emily closed her eyes briefly, exhaustion washing over her. When she opened them, a new resolve had formed, cold, hard, and clear as diamond. Let them talk, she said, straightening her shoulders. I'm done running. Mom would have hated this place, Michael said, staring through the car window at Camden. Academy's ivy-covered buildings and manicured lawns. The boarding school campus stretched before them, like something from a different world. Ancient trees, stone architecture, privilege made tangible. She would have wanted what's best for you, Emily replied, gripping the steering wheel to hide her trembling hands. After a week of tears and arguments, Michael had reluctantly agreed to visit the school. His acceptance letter had arrived the same day as Victoria's formal complaint to HR. Best for me or best for you? Michael's voice had acquired a new edge. Lately, harder, more accusatory. You just want me gone so I won't embarrass you with your fancy new friends. Each word was a dagger, precisely aimed. Emily flinched, but kept her voice steady. That's not true. I want you safe, away from the rumors and bullying. Away from you mean. Emily parked in the visitor's lot, cutting the engine but making no move to exit. Michael, look at me. She waited until her brother reluctantly met her gaze. Everything. I've done everything has been for us, for a better life than Mom had, than I had. I never asked for any of this, Michael said, his voice breaking slightly. I was happy before. Were you? Emily challenged gently. In that crowded apartment? With Aunt Margie's boyfriends? With no money for school trips or decent clothes? Michael looked away. At least we were together. The simple truth of it nearly broke her. We still are. This isn't goodbye, Michael. It's just a pause. A chance for both of us to figure things out. Headmaster Pearson was exactly as Nathan had described. Stern, but kind, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. He led them through the campus, pointing out facilities that seemed unreal to Emily. Science labs better equipped than her college, a theater worthy of Broadway, dorms that looked like luxury apartments. Michael's test scores are exceptional, Pearson explained as they toured the mathematics building. Our accelerated program would challenge him appropriately, and our small class sizes ensure personal attention. Michael remained silent, But Emily noticed his eyes widening at the robotics lab, where students were building complex machines. For the first time since the school incident, a spark of interest animated his features. "We understand Michael's situation. Is that unusual?" Pearson continued delicately. "The Reynolds Scholarship covers everything: tuition, room and board, books, activities. We're also aware of the need for discretion regarding the source of the funding." So Nathan had protected Michael from the rumors, at least here. Emily felt a surge of gratitude mixed with wariness. Every gift from Nathan seemed to come with unseen complications. By the end of the tour, Michael's resistance had softened visibly. When Pearson left them alone to discuss, he admitted reluctantly, "It seems okay. Better than my current school anyway." "You'd be starting fresh," Emily said carefully. "No one knowing our history, no rumors, just you and your abilities." Michael picked at a loose thread on his sleeve. "Would you visit? It's a long drive from the city." "Every weekend," Emily promised immediately. "And you'd come home for holidays. It's not forever, Michael. Just until things settle down." What she didn't say. "Until I figure out if I still have a career. Until the Victoria situation resolves. Until we know if Nathan Reynolds is ally or enemy." The drive back to Manhattan was quieter, less tense. Michael had taken brochures, even asked questions about the curriculum. A small victory, but Emily would take it. Her phone rang as they entered the city. Alex Chen calling for the third time that day. "Emily, where are you?" "The Tokyo team is here. The meeting started 30 minutes ago." Ice flooded her veins. "What? Meeting? There's nothing on my calendar." Victoria moved it up. "Claims she sent you the update, but nobody can find the email. Tanaka's asking for you specifically." Emily checked the time, 4:45 p.m. Manhattan traffic would make it impossible to reach the office before the meeting ended. "Tell them I had a family emergency, but I'm on my way," she instructed, already changing lanes to take a shortcut. "And Alex, thank you." Michael watched her face. "More work drama?" "Nothing I can't handle," she replied automatically. "That's what Mom always said," Michael observed quietly, right up until she couldn't handle it anymore. The simple observation hit Emily like a physical blow. Their mother had maintained that brave front until the very end, shielding her children from the reality of their desperate situation. Was Emily following the same destructive path? "I'll drop you at the apartment," she said, making a decision. "I have something important to handle." It was 5:30 when Emily finally reached Reynolds Tower. She bypassed the executive elevator, heading instead for Victoria's private office on the 52nd floor. Her assistant tried to intercept her. "Ms. Winters is in a meeting." Emily pushed past her, throwing open Victoria's door without knocking. Inside, Victoria sat with Daniel Preston and James Morrison, her loyal lieutenants, clearly celebrating. "Ms. Thompson." Victoria recovered quickly, her smile glacial. "How unfortunate you missed the Tokyo presentation. Mr. Tanaka was most disappointed." "Cut the crap, Victoria." Emily closed the door behind her. "The sabotage ends now." Daniel and James exchanged uncomfortable glances. Victoria merely raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "I'm not sure what you're implying. Deliberately rescheduling meetings without notifying me, undermining me with international clients, filing false complaints, spreading rumors about me and Nathan." Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I know what you're doing." Victoria's plastic smile never wavered. "Do you? Then you should also know you've already lost. The board is convening Monday to review my complaint. Nathan's judgment is being questioned. And you, my dear, will return to whatever gutter he found you in." The casual cruelty struck Emily like a physical blow, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. Is that what this is about? Preserving the sacred hierarchy, making sure the cleaning lady remembers her place. This is about protecting a multi-billion-dollar company from Nathan Reynolds' increasingly erratic behavior. Victoria snapped, composure cracking slightly. "His little social justice experiments are endangering shareholder value." "You mean endangering your shot at the CEO position?" Emily countered. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? Nathan's vision for the company threatens your ambitions." Victoria stood slowly, her expression hardening. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into, little girl. Go back to your brother. Pack your things. On Monday, this all ends." The mention of Michael sent a chill through Emily. "Leave my brother out of this." "Oh?" Victoria's smile turned predatory. "Is he enjoying his scholarship? The one Nathan arranged so quickly? The board might be interested to know about that particular benefit." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. "That's between Nathan and me. Nothing is just between you and Nathan. Not anymore. Victoria moved around her desk, voice lowering confidentially. I'll make you an offer, Emily. Resign today. Sign. Herrn NDA. Walk away with 3 months severance, enough to start fresh somewhere else with your brother. The offer was tempting. Escape from this brutal environment. From the daily struggle to prove her worth, from the rumors and sabotage. Michael could attend a different school, one not connected to Nathan. They could rebuild. Or, Victoria continued, stay and fight. Watch your reputation destroyed. Watch your brother dragged into a public scandal. Watch everything you've worked for crumble. Emily realized with sudden clarity that Victoria was afraid. This wasn't the confidence of someone assured of victory. It was the desperate move of someone who recognized a genuine threat. You know what your problem is, Victoria, Emily said quietly. You still think this is about Nathan, that I'm just his puppet, his project, his charity case. She stepped closer, dropping her voice to a whisper. You have no idea what I'm capable of on my own. Victoria's eyes widened slightly, her composure faltering at Emily's unexpected defiance. See you. Monday? Emily concluded, turning to leave. I believe we both have presentations to prepare for the board. As she walked out, head high despite her racing heart, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. Roof. Now. NR. The elevator ride to the roof level gave Emily precious minutes to compose herself. The confrontation with Victoria had been reckless, potentially disastrous. Yet something had shifted inside her, a lifetime of deference giving way to fierce determination. Nathan stood alone at the edge of the rooftop garden, silhouetted against the Manhattan sunset. Without turning, he said, Michael liked Camden. Emily moved beside him, keeping a careful professional distance. How did you know? Pearson called me. Nathan continued staring at the horizon. Victoria came to see me this afternoon. Let me guess. She wants me gone. She wants us both gone. Nathan turned finally, his expression grave. The board is entertaining a motion to remove me as CEO. Emily's breath caught. Can they do that? With enough votes, yes. His gaze was steady, evaluating. Victoria offered you a severance package. News. Traveled fast. She did. And I declined. Something like pride flickered in Nathan's eyes. Monday's board meeting will be a battleground, Emily. Victoria's prepared. She has allies on the board. Evidence she's manufactured, a compelling narrative about my compromised judgment. Where does that leave me? Emily asked quietly. That, Nathan said, depends entirely on what you do next. As the sun disappeared, behind the Manhattan skyline, Emily realized she stood on a precipice between her past and an uncertain future. Whatever choice she made now would irrevocably alter both her life and Michael's. There would be no going back, no safe middle ground. The battle lines were drawn, and on Monday war would begin. The Reynolds Enterprises boardroom hummed with tension as Emily took her assigned seat. The enormous mahogany table, once her responsibility to clean, now served as the battlefield for corporate warfare. Board, members and executives filed in silently, taking positions like chess pieces before the opening move. Victoria Winters entered with calculated precision, 3 minutes before the scheduled start, wearing a crimson power suit that reminded Emily of freshly spilled blood. Her gaze briefly locked with Emily's, a silent promise of destruction. The weekend had passed in a blur of preparation. Emily had dropped Michael at Camden Academy on Sunday, their goodbye in the dormitory hallway brief and painful. I'll call. Every day, she'd promised, helping him arrange his few possessions in the tiny room. It doesn't matter, he'd replied, the new hardness in his voice breaking her heart. I know how busy you are. Now, sitting in this room of power and privilege, Emily wondered if she'd made an unforgivable mistake. Was any career worth the growing distance between her and her brother? Any vindication worth the look of abandonment in Michael's eyes? The boardroom doors opened one final time as Nathan Reynolds entered, impeccably dressed, but with subtle signs of strain around his eyes. The past 3 days had clearly taken their toll. He nodded almost imperceptibly to Emily before taking his place at the head of the table. Richard Hargrove, chairman of the board, called the meeting to order. We have 2 significant items on today's agenda. First, the Tokyo expansion strategy. Second, a personnel matter requiring board attention. His faded grey eyes flickered between Nathan and Victoria. Ms. Winters has requested to begin. Victoria rose smoothly, digital presentation already cued. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we address the Tokyo strategy, I feel compelled to raise serious concerns about governance and leadership decisions that directly impact that expansion. And so it began. Victoria's meticulously constructed character assassination. For 40 excruciating minutes, she presented a damning narrative. Nathan's erratic decision-making, his concerning pattern of elevating unqualified individuals based on personal interest, culminating in Emily's promotion from janitorial staff to executive leadership without proper vetting or qualification. Victoria displayed emails, meeting minutes, financial reports, all carefully curated to support her claims. The Reynolds name has always represented excellence and sound judgment, she concluded. Recent decisions threaten that legacy and, by extension, shareholder value. Several board members nodded in agreement. Emily felt the room tilting against her, against Nathan. Victoria's presentation had been masterful, technically accurate while wildly misleading. And now, Victoria added with rehearsed reluctance, I must address the most difficult aspect of this situation. She pulled up an image on the screen. Emily and Nathan leaving his Porsche at the Queen's Diner, his hand briefly touching her lower back as they entered. The company has strict policies regarding relationships between supervisors and subordinates, Victoria stated, her voice dripping with false concern. Policies designed to protect the company from exactly this type of situation. Emily's cheeks burned with humiliation and rage. The innocent moment had been twisted into something tawdry, the context stripped away. Furthermore, Victoria continued relentlessly, we've discovered Mr. Reynolds arranged a full scholarship to Camden Academy for Ms. Thompson's brother, an unprecedented personal intervention valued at approximately $250,000 over 4 years. This raises serious questions about misappropriation of company resources and conflicts of interest. The boardroom fell silent. Emily could feel her career, her reputation, her future crumbling around her. Even if she survived this professionally, how would she explain this public humiliation to Michael? How could she protect him from the fallout? Thank you. You, Ms. Winters, Hargrove said after a moment. Mr. Reynolds, your response? Nathan rose slowly, his expression unreadable. Before I address these allegations, I believe Ms. Thompson has prepared the Tokyo strategy presentation that was actually on our agenda today. All eyes turned to Emily, who felt frozen in her seat. This hadn't been the plan. Nathan was supposed to defend himself first, giving her time to recover from Victoria's attack. Ms. Thompson? Hargrove prompted, with legs that felt disconnected. From her body, Emily stood and moved to the presentation podium. Her carefully prepared slides on the Tokyo expansion strategy seemed trivial now, irrelevant in the face of Victoria's accusations. The Tokyo expansion, she began, her voice initially unsteady, but strengthening with each word. Reynolds Enterprises stands at a crossroads, not just in our Asian market strategy, but in our fundamental approach to global business. Instead of launching her prepared presentation, Emily minimized it and faced the board directly. But before I discuss Tokyo, I need to address the allegations we've just heard. Victoria stiffened visibly. This deviation wasn't in her script. Yes, I was a member of the cleaning staff at Reynolds Enterprises, Emily acknowledged, her voice clear and unapologetic. I immigrated to this country with my mother when I was 12. I worked multiple jobs to put myself through Columbia University, where I graduated with honors in linguistics, fluent in 5 languages. She paused, making eye contact with each board member. When my mother died of cancer, leaving medical bills that would take decades to pay off, I took the only job I could find that offered immediate health insurance for myself and my younger brother, building maintenance at Reynolds Tower. The room remained silent, all eyes fixed on Emily as she continued. For 2 years, I cleaned your offices, your conference rooms, your private bathrooms. I emptied your trash cans. I wiped coffee rings from this very table. And during those 2 years, I listened. I learned. I absorbed every detail about this company's operations, its challenges, its global strategy. Emily turned to Victoria. Ms. Winters, 3 months ago, you spilled coffee on the quarterly Tokyo projections in this very room. You cursed in English, then apologized in what you thought was Japanese, but was actually a vulgar Korean phrase. I cleaned up the mess and, later that day, prepared proper Japanese translations of the apology for your team. Victoria's face paled slightly as board members shifted uncomfortably. Emily continued, her voice gaining strength. Mr. Preston, you frequently rehearse presentations. aloud while I cleaned your office. Last quarter, you miscalculated the tariff implications for our semiconductor components by approximately $4.3 million. I adjusted my cleaning schedule to return when you weren't there and left a corrected analysis under your keyboard. You implemented the changes without ever questioning where they came from. Daniel Preston's mouth fell open in shocked recognition. You all saw me, but none of you actually saw me, Emily concluded. None except Nathan Reynolds, who recognized that talent and intelligence don't come with pedigrees and privileged backgrounds. She turned to Nathan, who watched her with an expression of stunned admiration. Yes, Mr. Reynolds promoted me rapidly. Yes, he arranged a scholarship for my brother, from his personal foundation, not company funds, as Ms. Winters well knows. Yes, we had breakfast at a diner in Queens. Emily faced the board again. But the real question isn't whether Nathan Reynolds showed unusual faith in a former janitor. The question is why the rest of you didn't. Why it takes a CEO with the courage to look beyond resumes and country club memberships to recognize talent standing right in front of you, mop in hand. With steady fingers, Emily pulled up her Tokyo strategy presentation. Now about Japan. Unlike many Western companies, Reynolds Enterprises has the opportunity to enter the market not as colonial interlopers, but as respectful partners. My strategy leverages cultural intelligence and linguistic nuance to position us uniquely among American competitors. For the next 20 minutes, Emily delivered a presentation that left the boardroom in stunned silence. She switched effortlessly between English and Japanese, demonstrating the cultural subtleties that would make or break their expansion. She presented data, projections, risk analyses, all with the precision and confidence of someone who knew exactly her worth. When she concluded, Richard Hargrove leaned forward. Where did you acquire this level of market insight, Ms. Thompson? Certainly not while cleaning offices. Some of it, yes, actually, Emily replied. The rest comes from research I've conducted over the past month, including direct conversations with our Japanese partners in their native language, understanding their cultural context. Something no one else in this room can do. She gathered her materials, suddenly exhausted by the performance. My value to this company isn't that I speak Japanese or understand cultural nuances. My value is that I bring a perspective none of you have. I know what it's like to be invisible, overlooked, underestimated. I know what your clients feel when your executives speak down to them in broken English, assuming cultural superiority. Emily looked directly at Victoria. And I know what it's like to have everything to lose, to fight not for a corner office or a bigger bonus, but for basic survival. The room fell silent. Even Victoria seemed momentarily speechless. Nathan finally stood. The scholarship for Michael Thompson came from my mother's foundation, the Maria Reynolds Educational Fund, a foundation created specifically to help talented students without financial means, particularly children of service workers. His voice softened. My mother cleaned office buildings for 30 years. She died of cancer without health care. Sound familiar? Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Nathan continued. As for Ms. Thompson's qualifications, I believe her presentation speaks for itself. The Tokyo team specifically requested her leadership on this expansion after their first interaction. He turned to Victoria. The real question, Ms. Winters, is why you felt so threatened by Emily's talent that you needed to manufacture this elaborate attack. Is it because she accomplished in 1 month what you couldn't in 5 years, gaining the trust of our Japanese partners? Victoria's face flushed with anger. This is absurd. She's a glorified translator with no business experience. Actually, came a voice from the doorway, she's considerably more than that. All heads turned to see Hiroaki Tanaka standing in the entrance, apparently having arrived during Emily's presentation. Mr. Tanaka, Nathan acknowledged, surprise evident in his voice. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow's session. I arrived early when I heard of today's situation. The Japanese executive moved into the room, bowing slightly to Emily before addressing the board. Ms. Thompson is the first Reynolds representative who has truly understood our concerns about this partnership. Her approach honors our business traditions while creating genuine value for both parties. He turned to Victoria. Your methods, Ms. Winters, have consistently treated Japanese customs as obstacles to overcome rather than foundations to build upon. Victoria's carefully constructed attack was crumbling before her eyes. She attempted to recover. Mr. Tanaka, with all due respect, cultural sensitivity is only one small aspect of a complex business relationship. Perhaps in your American view, Tanaka replied coolly. In Japan, it is the foundation upon which all else is built. Richard Hargrove cleared his throat. Given this unexpected development, I suggest we take a brief recess before continuing. As the room emptied, Emily remained seated, physically unable to move. The adrenaline that had carried her through her speech was dissipating, leaving her hollow and trembling. That, Nathan said quietly, taking the seat beside her, was the most extraordinary thing I've ever witnessed in this boardroom. Emily looked up at him, suddenly aware of the tears threatening to spill. Did I just destroy my career, Michael's future, everything? Nathan's hand covered hers briefly, a gesture of solidarity, not romance. No, Emily, I think you just saved us both. Outside the boardroom windows, storm clouds gathered over Manhattan, mirroring the tempest that had just swept through Reynolds Enterprises. The war wasn't over. Victoria wouldn't surrender easily, but the first decisive battle had been won. Emily only hoped the victory wouldn't cost her the one thing that truly mattered, her relationship with her brother, who sat alone in a dormitory room at Camden Academy, feeling abandoned by the only family he had left. 3 months after the fateful board meeting, Emily stood on the private terrace of Reynolds Tower, watching snow fall over Manhattan. The city sparkled beneath her, a crystalline wonderland so far removed from the cramped Bronx apartment where she'd once counted pennies for subway fare. Victoria Winters was gone, pursuing other opportunities, according to the press release. Though everyone knew she'd been forced out after the board meeting debacle, her allies remained, however, watching from the shadows, waiting for Emily to stumble. Emily's phone vibrated with a text from Diane. Tokyo contract signed. Tanaka sends personal thanks. A professional victory that should have felt sweeter. The Tokyo expansion was proceeding exactly as Emily had outlined, her cultural strategy proving more successful than even the most optimistic projections. She was now officially Global Communications Director, with a team of 20 reporting to her. On paper, she had everything she'd ever dreamed of. In reality, she had never felt more alone. Michael hadn't come home for Thanksgiving. Too much schoolwork, he'd claimed, though Emily suspected the truth was more painful. He simply didn't want to see her. Their weekly phone calls had dwindled to terse text messages. The bright, affectionate boy who'd once relied on her for everything was becoming a stranger. Camden Academy's headmaster reported that Michael was thriving academically but struggling to connect socially. The words haunted Emily. In her desperate attempt to give her brother a better future, had she robbed him of the only emotional stability he'd ever known? Thought I might find you here. Emily turned to find Nathan watching her from the terrace. Doorway, snow dusting his dark hair. In the months since the board confrontation, their professional relationship had solidified into something approaching friendship, though Emily maintained careful boundaries. Celebrating the Tokyo contracts? He asked, moving to stand beside her at the railing. Something like that. Emily brushed snow from her sleeve. Congratulations are in order for you too. The board's vote of confidence was unanimous. After Victoria's departure, the board had reaffirmed Nathan as CEO with expanded authority, a complete reversal of their previous position. His vision for a more inclusive, innovative company culture had prevailed, with Emily as its most visible success story. A victory that wouldn't have happened without you, Nathan acknowledged, though I'm not sure you've allowed yourself to enjoy it. Emily stared out at the city, avoiding his penetrating gaze. Michael isn't coming home for Christmas either. Says he'd rather stay at school with the other international students who can't travel home. I'm sorry, Nathan said quietly. Teenagers can be remarkably effective at emotional punishment. He's right to be angry. I sent him away. The pain of this admission caught in her throat. I chose my career over my brother. I chose to give him opportunities he wouldn't have had otherwise. Did I? Emily turned to face Nathan directly. Or did I just tell myself that to justify abandoning him, the same way you justify missing your mother's final days? The words were cruel, and Emily regretted them immediately. Nathan's expression didn't change, but something shuttered behind his eyes. You're right, he said finally. I've spent 15 years creating elaborate justifications for that decision. The company needed me. Investors were waiting. Millions of dollars at stake. He shook his head. None of it matters now. She died alone, and that's the end of the story. The raw honesty in his voice disarmed Emily. I'm sorry, that was unfair. It was accurate, Nathan corrected. And maybe that's why I've pushed so hard for you not to make the same mistake. He reached into his coat, removing an envelope. That's why I arranged this. Emily took the envelope, cautiously opening it to find plane tickets. New York to Aspen, departing tomorrow. What is this? Christmas vacation. A private lodge in Colorado for you and Michael. Nathan's expression softened slightly. Camden has agreed to release him early for the holidays. A car is picking him up tomorrow morning. Emily stared at the tickets, emotions warring within her. You had no right to arrange this without asking me. Probably not, Nathan agreed. But you wouldn't have asked for the time off yourself. You've worked through every weekend since the board meeting, taken on every project available, as if you're still trying to prove you belong here. The observation was uncomfortably accurate. Despite her success, Emily still felt like an imposter. In this world, still the cleaning lady who didn't belong in the executive suite. What about the Jakarta presentation next week? She asked, already mentally rearranging her schedule. The year-end reports? Will all be handled, Nathan interrupted. Contrary to what Victoria believed, you're not indispensable because you work yourself to exhaustion. You're valuable because you see solutions others miss. Emily tucked the tickets back into the envelope, conflicted. I can't keep accepting favors from you, Nathan. The scholarship, now this. It blurs lines that need to remain clear. This isn't a favor, he replied. It's a company-mandated vacation. For an executive who hasn't taken a single day off in 3 months. HR insisted, actually. They both knew this was a convenient fiction, but Emily appreciated the pretense. It preserved the professional distance she'd maintained since the board meeting, when rumors about their relationship had nearly destroyed both their careers. Thank you, she said finally, for understanding what matters. Nathan's gaze held hers. For a moment too long. Some lessons are learned the hard way. As he turned to leave, Emily found herself calling after him. What about you? Where will you be for Christmas? Here, he said simply, gesturing to the tower around them. Someone has to mind the store. The image of Nathan alone in his office on Christmas struck Emily with unexpected force. For all his wealth and power, he seemed as isolated as she was, perhaps more so. The lodge in Aspen was straight out of a holiday movie. Timber beams, stone fireplace, panoramic views of snow-covered mountains. Michael sat across from Emily at the massive dining table, pushing food around his plate in sullen silence. They'd been there 3 days, and the emotional distance between them had only grown wider. We could go skiing tomorrow, Emily suggested, trying to bridge the chasm for the 100th time. The concierge said there's a great beginner slope nearby. Michael shrugged. Whatever. Emily set down her fork, frustration finally boiling over. Michael, please, I'm trying here. Trying what? He shot back. To pretend we're a normal family. That you didn't ship me off to boarding school so I wouldn't interfere with your fancy new life. That's not what happened, and you know it. Do I? Michael's voice cracked slightly. You got your big promotion, and suddenly I'm in the way. Suddenly, I'm an embarrassment. The cleaning lady's little brother who doesn't fit into your executive world. Emily felt as though she'd been slapped. Is that really what you think? That I sent you to Camden because I was embarrassed by you? What else am I supposed to think? Michael's eyes filled with tears he angrily wiped away. You left me, Em. Just like Dad left us. Just like Mom left us, everyone leaves. The raw pain in his voice shattered Emily's heart. She moved around the table, kneeling beside his chair. Michael, look at me, please. Reluctantly, he met her gaze, his young face, a battlefield of hurt and anger. I made a mistake, Emily admitted, her voice breaking. I thought I was protecting you from the rumors, the bullying. I thought Camden would give you opportunities I never had, but I was wrong about what you needed most. Which is what? He asked, his defenses still high. Me, Emily said simply, tears flowing freely now. You needed your sister, your family, the only person who's been there through everything. And instead, I sent you away. Something in Michael's expression shifted, the anger giving way to the pain beneath it. I thought you didn't want me anymore, he whispered. That your new life was better without me in it. Nothing is better without you, Emily said fiercely. Nothing. For the first time in months, Michael allowed her to pull him into a hug. He felt smaller in her arms somehow, more vulnerable than his growing teenage frame suggested. I hate that school, he confessed against her shoulder. Everyone's so rich and entitled. They all have 2 parents and vacation homes and trust funds. I don't belong there. Emily stroked his hair, realizing with a pang that they were both living parallel experiences, outsiders in worlds they hadn't been born into. Then you don't have to stay, she promised. We'll figure something else out. Together this time. On Christmas morning, Emily woke to the unfamiliar sound of her brother's laughter. She found him in the lodge's great room, on a video call with someone whose voice sounded strangely familiar. "Emily's still sleeping," Michael was saying. "She never used to sleep past 6, but I guess that's what happens when you become a big executive." "Tell her some of us have been at the office since 5, came the reply. Nathan's voice, Emily realized with shock. Michael noticed her in the doorway and grinned, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him in months. "She's up. Merry Christmas." Mr. Reynolds called to check if we liked the lodge. Emily moved into frame, painfully aware of her rumpled pajamas and bedhead. "Nathan, is everything okay?" Nathan's face on Michael's tablet showed him sitting in his office, exactly as he'd said he would be. "Everything's fine, just checking that the accommodations are acceptable." "They're awesome," Michael interjected. "Way better than Camden. Did you know this place has a movie theater and a game room?" The easy rapport between her brother and Nathan caught Emily completely off guard. When had they developed this relationship? "Mr. Reynolds helps me with math sometimes," Michael explained, seeing her confusion. "He set up a tutoring thing when I was struggling last month. Another arrangement made without her knowledge." Emily wasn't sure whether to be grateful or concerned by Nathan's growing involvement in their lives. "I should let you enjoy your Christmas," Nathan said, seeming to sense her discomfort. The Jakarta team just arrived for an emergency meeting. "Anyway, on Christmas?" Emily asked. "The markets don't observe Christian holidays," Nathan replied with a slight smile. "Enjoy your vacation, Emily. You've earned it." After the call ended, Michael looked at her with unexpected perception. "He's not what I expected, you know. When all those rumors were going around about you two, I hated him. Thought he was just another rich jerk taking advantage of you." "And now?" Emily asked carefully. Michael considered this. "I think he's lonely, like crazy lonely. He calls to help with my math, but sometimes I think he just wants someone to talk to." The observation was startlingly insightful coming from a teenager. Had Nathan Reynolds, one of the most powerful men in America, been reaching out to her 13-year-old brother for connection? "Come on," Michael said, pulling her toward the Christmas tree. "There are presents, real ones, not just the envelope of cash Aunt Margie used to give us." As they opened gifts together, Michael exclaiming over the new laptop Emily had saved for, Emily tearing up at the handmade photo frame Michael had crafted at school, she felt something healing between them. The bond that had sustained them, through their mother's illness, through poverty and hardship, was bruised but not broken. Later, as snow fell outside the lodge windows, Emily sent a text to Nathan. "Thank you for this. We needed it more than I realized." His reply came hours later. "Some investments are worth more than money." Emily stared at those words for a long time, wondering what Nathan Reynolds truly wanted from her. Professionally, personally, emotionally. The lines had blurred despite her careful boundaries, and she wasn't sure she had the strength to redraw them. For now, though, watching Michael build a fire in the massive stone hearth, she allowed herself to simply be present in this moment of healing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles at Reynolds Enterprises. Victoria's allies still lurked in the shadows, and Emily's position remained precarious despite her success. But for the first time since their mother's death, Emily felt something like hope, not just for survival, but for a future where she and Michael could thrive together, without sacrificing each other in the process. Outside, the mountains stood silent sentinel against the gathering night, immovable and enduring, like the promise Emily made to herself as Christmas Day faded into memory. Never again would ambition come before family. Some prices were simply too high to pay,